Today, we are once again reacting to a video from Kurt's Card Care that left me a little bit speechless. So if you recall the video from 2 days ago, we spoke about a optic card that he was soaking in his cleaning substance in order to remove creases from the card. And one of the things I spoke to in that video was wanting to understand from people whether or not they are okay with that and whether or not you would knowingly buy a card that has had that done to it in order to get that PSA 10. And the response I got was quite fantastic. It seemed like most people, were on the side of the fence of, I don't like this, I don't want it. And we'll talk to more of that in a little bit. But the reason why this is interesting is because Kurt has gone ahead and basically shown a video where he's done this to a 1911 Honus Wagner. And I'll show you that now. It started off as a PSA 2 that he went ahead and soaked within his cleaning solution once again, that came back as an SGC 4. Spoiler alert, you'll see that towards the end of this video, but I'll talk, as you see some of the techniques that he's using. Now, one of the things that people corrected me on within my comments was that soaking has been around for a long time, which is, really dumb of me because I knew that. It just, happened to slip my mind. I'm also pretty big with soccer cards and all that sort of stuff. And soaking is a technique, especially in that space, because there are a lot of vintage stickers in soccer that people use in order to remove the residue off the back of the cards. And, personally, it's not something that I like. So there's a few things I want to clarify on that. Whilst, yes, I didn't reference the fact that soaking has been around a long time, especially with vintage, baseball cards and football cards and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't justify, that doesn't make it okay, because if you go ahead and search on some of these forums like Blowout forums, Net54, Collectors Universe forums, amongst many others, you're going to see the debate you saw in my comments the other day of people saying this is fine, graders can't spot it, graders think it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it, it's been done forever. And then you're going to have people on the other side of the fence saying it's a bit unethical, right? If you want to use it for your own cards, go ahead and do it. But if you're going to use it and then sell it, you need to tell people. And the reason why that's important, because a few other people said in my video, well, Daniel, you're talking about a lot of hypotheticals here. You're talking about the potential damage. Do you know if there's going to be actual damage long-term from soaking a card? But those questions are being asked and given examples of in many of these forums. You're going to see people come out and say, well, I've heard of cards and I've seen cards split over time. I've seen cards crack over time. But my question is, just because we sort of don't know what's going to happen long-term, because maybe nobody's really monitored it, does that make it okay? My concern would be that this is happening, right? You're basically then, putting moisture on the card and then, taking the moisture out by squeezing it. Maybe you're expanding the card a little bit, but you get rid of all the creases. That's all well and good. You then put it into a slab. You then sell it to somebody as a PSA 10. As an example, what's going to happen over time? Is there going to be potential moisture getting into that card or the humidity from being in that card, depending on where you live in the world where humidity is higher in some places than others? Is that going to revert the card and maybe show some of these creases once again, therefore showing a card that is not a true representation of that grade? And based on what I've read online, that has happened to people. So that's where my concern comes. I don't really care what you're doing, as long as you please tell people about it. And the other thing that's super important here that I sort of glossed over in my original video is that some people basically say, well, the graders can't spot it, that's their fault. 100% that is completely their fault. And you can sort of see on screen now, this came back as an SGC 4. Yes, the graders need to be doing better. Yes, we need to be holding them accountable for why they can't spot some of these techniques. But my question goes back to a video we did 3 or 4 days ago about grading guarantees, because some people will say, well, yes, they suck, but they've got a guarantee. They've said it's this. I'm going to buy it because I know I'm protected. But if you haven't seen my video, please check it out, because unfortunately, not every guarantee is the same, and you're not going to be protected by every single grader, in particular the likes of BGS, maybe even SGC, based on some of the things I talked to last time. So whilst you might think, well, they've said this is a 4, but really they shouldn't have done it because they should have detected the edge rolling or the corner repair or the color touch up or anything else like that. It's like, well, no, their guarantee does not cover everything, and you might be exposed more than what you probably think. And again, are you okay buying a card like that? And it's really unfortunate to think how many cards I probably had stuff like this done. And yes, maybe I'm a dinosaur. Maybe I'm somebody that just needs to get with the times. But the general consensus in my comments, and then sort of everything that I've read online, once again, in preparation for this video, clearly indicates that the vast majority are not okay with this. And it's just very surprising to see so many people adamant that this sort of stuff is okay. And it's one of those things that we as a hobby, I've said in a few comments, sort of need to understand, where do we draw the line? Where is sort of where people were happy with restoration in the past and alteration and all that kind of stuff versus today? One of the things that people also said was, well, how is this different to, this is the same thing as cleaning a card before you sell it, but it's not. It's similar to like, reverting the odometer on the card, reducing the kilometers before you sell it. It's a bit disingenuous in my opinion. And I'll repeat myself again from that first video. The thing that I always use as a determining factor in my opinion by people, doing this and they're not disclosing it when they sell it is because they know if they disclose it, the person that's buying it may not pay that premium. So that almost tells you sort of all you need to know. And one of the other things that people also compare with this sort of stuff is they say, well, artwork has restoration done to it and people are okay with that. But the thing you need to understand is artworks are typically one of ones, and that sort of stuff is done for preservation. Okay, yes, you could say a rare Honus Wagner, which this card wasn't, but you could say a rare Honus Wagner might need that restoration in order to keep it. But the thing is, with vintage artwork, it's told by the auction houses and all that sort of stuff that some form of restoration was done. People can inspect it and notice that. You can't always notice it with cards. So does that make it okay? Maybe, maybe not. But that's sort of what we need to sort of understand. And maybe the better position to be in is, okay, well, do we just take the assumption that everything vintage is now altered? Is it been trimmed? Has been color touched up? Has had soaking done to it? Do we need to do the same thing with every PSA 10 today when it comes to modern cards? Probably. And maybe that's sort of the happy medium. But in my opinion, my gut still tells me that this stuff is not okay. And yes, people say I'm a hater, I'm negative and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you go to the comment section, the vast majority of people got the general gist of it. And it's good to have this kind of dialogue. It's good to have this kind of discourse to understand, where the hobby actually is. And I've said it before when we've spoken about Kurt's Card Care many times in the past around some of his services and others that, it's just been strange to me to sort of see how the hobby's changed its mindset on certain things, right? There seems to be so much more of a focus on buying something to sell, right? And that's sort of clouding people's judgment, which is just an interesting thing to sort of think about. And, one of the things, maybe it's a bit of a bias that I have in my mind around the people that say this is okay. I just have a feeling that a lot of people that say it's okay are happy when, they're the ones selling the card. But if the shoe was on the other foot and they were to, buy a card that then had issues like this, down the line, or it wasn't disclosed to them, I feel like they'd be a bit unhappy. They'd be a bit grumpy in that situation. Now, that could just be a bias in my head, but that's just a gut feeling, that I have. And just to go, to my thoughts a bit earlier around, maybe there's certain things that we just need to get used to these days. Maybe this is just a change in the dynamic of the mindset of the modern hobby, but you've got parallels to the comic book community where certain things were previously completely frowned upon that are now being done today, like pressing amongst other cleaning services. So maybe this is just one of those things that I need to get used to. And whilst that might be the case, I'm still happy to sort of stand on the fact that I don't like it, and that doesn't make me a hater. That doesn't make me negative. This is just a good, conversation to have. And to go back to what I sort of said in the last video about doing a poll, I said I wasn't going to do one. I may have mentioned it, at the start of this video, but I've actually put one up now. You'll see it get released just before this video drops. I'll put a link down below. So before you guys go ahead and vote in that poll, I want you once again to leave your comments, down below on the whole situation. Even if you left one last time, maybe you've had a bit more time to think about the situation and just, share additional thoughts, because I think it's a good thing to have discussions like this, primarily because of what the long-term risks are. And I can't remember if I said this as well. One of the things that sort of people cut slack for in situations like this, they said, well, Daniel, your last video had a lot of hypotheticals about damage to these cards long-term. Do you have any proof? And I spoke to some examples of that in this specific video, but my mindset is, well, why do I need to have the proof that this stuff doesn't damage the card long-term? Shouldn't it be the people that are using these services and coming up with these chemicals and these polishes and these cleaning solutions to go on the cards to do the research themselves? Shouldn't the onus be on them in the first place? Why is it the people that are pushing back on this sort of stuff and saying, guys, I'm happy for you to do whatever you want, but let's think about this before we go ahead and not disclose it to people, right? Why is it me having the pushback? Why is it others like me having the pushback? Why is it not the person doing it in the first place? If you're coming up with a solution, surely you should be giving some kind of insight to the wider community on, yes, I've tested this on cards over many years, but have not had any issues. Soaking might be in that camp, but like I opened the video with, there's lots of issues with that. You just have to quickly Google them and you'll find the answers you're looking for. So it's just one of those things that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm happy to have pushback my way. I'm happy to be called a hater and all that kind of stuff. But videos like this are all about the discussion, about wanting to understand the deeper mind of the modern hobby collector, right? The modern collector. So, like I said, why is it me being asked this question and not the person doing it in the first place? Seems a bit weird in my opinion. So, as always, please share your thoughts down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Vote in my poll, please. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.